Welcome guys, it's been a while for me making any content, so why not better to jump straight back in with reviewing what could be Anbernic's finest handheld that ever been created, or perhaps even the best retro gaming emulation handheld ever made. Some big words I know, but of course I'd love to hear your opinions in the comment section below. Got quite a lot to cover with this handheld, which I'm happy to get into as the hype for me is pretty real. First things first, let's do a quick unboxing to see what you get with your purchase altogether. The price is pretty steep for this fella, which means I'm personally stepping out of my comfort zone of budget-based handheld gaming. So this handheld best be taking those boxes that I like to get out of a handheld. So far we got our screen cleaning wipes and screen protector, which is always included with Anbernic devices, which is pretty awesome, and a manual and a little tiny box full of mysteries. Oh, just a USB-C cable for charging and data transferring. Now we're moving on to the handheld itself. My immediate reaction is the build quality. This is a step up for me personally, and what is the first that feels like to me a premium handheld. It is carrying some weight and it just slips into my hand at ease. This time around, this model is built specifically with a aluminium alloy CNS process, which provides a very smooth but premium feel. This is the all black model, which I have to say is more of a very dark grey. There is also a light grey variant model out there with coloured buttons. This design and layout is finally one of my personal favourite layouts, but of course it does have its problems, which I'll go on about later on in this video. At the top we do have the power button, volume button and USB-C, and a small LED power indicator, which are slightly concaved, which means there is no bulging out, so no accidental presses whilst in your pocket. These are micro switched with a very low and smooth travel, providing a smooth feel throughout the entire handheld. We have micro switched bumper buttons, which are designed in line together to provide a smaller width profile for further pocketability. We have that awesome D-pad that is typical of Anbernic. The analog stick are placed correctly, well, just in my opinion anyway. We have a home and return button on the front facing of this handheld on the left hand side, and a start and select on the bottom right. Now let's brush up on the specs of this handheld. Before we do, a quick shout out to Grind Studio. I'm sure you guys, being fan of handheld gamings, could find this pretty awesome as well. They were kind enough to send me an example of their work to share with you guys, and I must say I'm already impressed with their packaging. I originally did not want to open and spoil such a great job that they've done already. Some quick info on Grind Studio is that they have a passion for the digital area that we live today. They have brought back your memories so that they can go on and not disappear into the ethos. They have a great selection of precious collection of technology and restore them into valuable art, including the handheld gaming of the past. With a great selection to choose from, I'm sure there'll be something to trigger off your nostalgia goodness that you can show and display at your home in a beautiful displayed frame. In the description box below, you will also find a 15% discount code off your first purchase. They went ahead and sent me the original Game Boy, being Nintendo's first handheld that accepts interchangeable cartridges. This was released in the UK and Europe back in 1990, which I'm sure you guys already know. Around 118 million units of the Game Boy were sold back in the day, making it the fourth best selling video game console of all time. Now I can show my support in this beautiful displayed art frame by this studio. I'm thinking of hitting their web store, as they do have a tasty Game Gear, which is more hitting my personal nostalgic strings. The studio is based in China, but they do have warehouses based in China, United States and Czech Republic. So depending on your location, delivery time will vary. The links are below of course, and this will support my channel and it will be much appreciated. Anyway, back to the specs of the RG405m. Now the CPU and GPU is the same as the prior RG505 released by Anbernic, so no upgrade there, and almost the same as the RIGHTSPRITE Pocket 3 if you guys are a fan of that handheld. We have 4GB of DR4 RAM, which is nice to see, plenty of room for your Android apps, and pushing emulators again the same as the RG503 to about PlayStation 2 and GameCube, but let's see what we can get out of this handheld. Now the storage is 128GB built in eMMC, so that's really nice, plenty of space to play around with. We've got 5GB of Wi-Fi, which is great to see if you want to stream content, say from your PC or PS4 to this handheld. This does run on the Android 12 OS, which is really nice to see, and it does come with the built-in front end with the OS, so this is something that Anbernic has been doing with their more recent handhelds. The handheld dimensions, we do have the length of 16.3 with the width of 7.6 centimeters, the height 1.59 centimeters, and the weight kicking in about 0.260 kilograms. Here's a couple of side-by-side comparisons, starting with the Anbernic 353p, one of my personal favourites by them due to its layout and simplicity, but now we have more screen to body ratio with a better comfortability with the built-in design. And now next to a popular choice of handhelds, the Retroid Pocket 3, well, the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus as well. When you play games on 4:3 ratio with the Retroid Pocket 3, we're still getting around the same type of screen size, which is a type of content I play on these devices anyway, but now we're getting a better pocket form factor with about 2 centimeters of width now freed up. Before I go any further, let's pop on this screen protector, as I have learned the hard way in the past, and I do recommend anyone doing this straight away after they get yours out of the box. A couple of more notes on the hardware on this handheld I really enjoy is with the analog sticks do have a grip texture around its border, which feel very responsive and very comfortable to use, and the front face buttons do have a gloss feel around on the buttons and are slightly bigger to its competitors that feel very comfortable, and perhaps now are my personal favourite buttons on a handheld so far. This does not come with its own power brick, which is a bit of the norm of these handhelds at the moment, but this does come with about 2 hours of charge time, with about 4 to 6 hours of gameplay apparently, depending on what you use. Now I did use a ultra charged USB as you see here, and it does recognize the charge and did shorten the time for about almost an hour and a half, but I don't recommend these because this could have damage to the battery itself. Well, I have to open this out and check out what the quality is like inside, and I have to say this was an ease to open up. Immediately you are greeted with the same type of quality what it's like outside the case. A very tidy build. We do have our vibration motor that you can see, and then we have a heat sink shield that is placed over the battery. It's not really common sight to see in handhelds. But this is in line as you saw the vents on the top earlier on. It is designed for passive cooling, so no active fans here to cool this down. We have another heat shield placed over the processor and RAM. Now I would say this probably will get a little bit hot, depending on what demanding type of games you are playing on the system, but I will find out later on. Now let's boot this up for the first time, taking up less than 30 seconds, which is a nice sweet spot. We then have our installation process, which did take around about 10 to 15 minutes to get this all up and ready. This will include all the built-in apps which you may be familiar with if you already have some Anbernic goods. My purchase didn't come with an SD card, but I already have one built up and ready for these handhelds. I have to say though, I do prefer the cover flaps on the SD slot on the Retroid Pocket 3, so it's just protected and not getting any pocket junk jammed up in there when you're taking this on the go. Well, I managed to set this up closer to my personal preference, but we do have Play Store pre-installed already, which makes this process a lot easier. Also installed, we have some compatible Android games that I went ahead and did so I can show you later on in this video. This does come pre-installed with its own OTA online updater, which is awesome, so that Anbernic can carry on supporting this handheld with its own dedicated updates. For the first time for me anyway with these handhelds, I've seen a guidebook, which is needed especially for its own front end and launcher information, which I'll show more info later. When you pull down its navigation bar from the top, you'll see some new add-ons and features that can be easily accessed. Switching between the Xbox and Switch button layout essentially just swaps the A and B button around, just to your personal preference. We have a key mapping tool as well, which we've seen in previous devices. Personally, I'm not a fan, as I just rather the games to be built with the controller in mind in the first place, so I just kind of don't use that anyway. We have a high performance mode switcher, never seen any performance benefit with any previous devices, so we're not expecting much with that. We do have a screencast protector, so it means that you can connect this with a smart TV or any Chromecast device, which is pretty handy. A switch for the dark theme mode and a screen and sound capture mode. I have to say I've used this for a while and it's just rendered useless. Some updates is needed for this for better stability. But I do enjoy its night mode to dim those blue lights, making it better to use when you're all wrapped up for some bedtime gaming. To access Anbernic's pre-built game launcher, you simply pull down the navigation bar and select the launcher. This time it's nice and tucked away. This one does have extra themes and you can place your own custom backgrounds, so this is the more recent updated version. I enjoy its simplicity, but I can't really find this really stable enough to be my main launcher, and we do have a lot more out there. My personal favorite is daijisho, which is a lot better to use, and if you'd like to find out more how to set this up for your own device, I will put up a setup link video in the description box below. But now let's jump into his emulation performance. As mentioned earlier, this is using the same chipset as the RG405, which came out just less than a year ago, so the same results there if you know anything about that device. And of course, the console generations like the PlayStation 1 and N64 are all great to run on this system, even DS and PSP. But the more harder to emulate consoles like the PlayStation 2, you can only access really about 20 to 30% of these titles, mostly the easier to emulate titles like 2D based or some lighter 3D games, but you could get away with a few more titles with just using some setting tweaks. I'm sure the creators of Aether SX2, which is the app that runs these PlayStation 2 games, have really done a great job, which I'm really grateful for, and they could apply some minor updates to get these lower end devices to get better compatibility. It would be really nice, but we all know that there's been a bit of a mess with that company, especially because of how the interest on this app has exploded quite recently. Even though that this device roughly has the same specs as the Retroid Pocket 3, I did find some minor frame rate dips throughout the same titles played on the PlayStation 2 emulation, but I'm sure this could be amended through some minor settings, alterations, and perhaps even an app update. Heading to some GameCube emulation, we do have basically the same results as the PlayStation 2 compatibility, but with some minor tweaks here and there. If you know your knowledge about using the Dolphin emulation app, you could get some better results. But again, this is the same as the RG405 and the Retro Pocket 3 when it comes to the harder to emulate ones. Its sweet spot for running later generation consoles is the Sega Dreamcast. Titles look and run great. It could even process high resolution mode, but we are capped by its limitations with the screen ratio and resolution by 640 by 480. But you can still see some improvements with this switched on. With Android-based games, I do enjoy a fair amount of these titles, but again you are restricted to its compatibility due to its screen size, so I wouldn't really personally recommend this device if you were picking this up to play Android-based games. But I was pretty excited that I could play titles like Horizon Chase, Evoland, Adventure Manor, and even the latest Doom, which is also controller friendly. It's just the layout of the buttons, which I'm sure is something that you can change. When comparing the screen quality to a recent release of Anbernic's RG35XX, you will notice that the RG405m does not have a better or even as good viewing angle, but it does have better saturated colours. It's not a big disappointment, but with a more affordable handheld you would think that would be on par or even better. Here is a quick example now of the sound quality. I personally found it a bit more reflective type of sound and ever so slightly muffled when I compare this with other devices, so I did expect something a little bit better. But all in all, this is an awesome premium device that I've experienced for the first time when it comes to these dedicated Android emulation handhelds. It does have some minor software updates that is needed and some tweaks. Personally, I would like the L2 and R2 button to be more in a trigger position, but I do prefer them to use a simple micro switch button, not that you see these analog triggers that you find at home console controllers. This will help then keep that smaller profile. The one big personal problem that I have is this lack of video output, which is on many devices that Anbernic has released in the past, but for some reason they haven't included it in this one. I would enjoy getting this device onto the big screen without using that screencast lag. Also, a dedicated controller connection app to register the controllers better would be pretty awesome. Again, a widescreen with a higher resolution would have really been the cherry on top with this, but it all depends on your personal preference, as a lot of people would be using these to play the old school games anyway. One thing I like to compare this to is the original Retro Pocket 2 and 2 Plus. They just feel like a premium version, and that was one of my favourite handhelds that I used to date. It is by far the best quality handheld that I personally experienced when it comes to these handhelds from Powkiddy, Retro Pocket, Anbernic and all the other competition out there. But I did notice after some heavy use, the right hand side where the RAM and the processor is placed does get pretty toasty after some heavy use. But it's not very a recurring problem, but something to look out for when purchasing this device. The price point again is a little bit high, that I would like to see those issues that I mentioned earlier to really be addressed, then that would really be the price that this is asking for. But if you are currently looking for what looks like to be the best built Android retro gaming emulation handheld out there with great portability, this could be the one for you. Well, I do hope that you enjoyed watching this video. I appreciate you a lot for sticking around if you managed to do so. And as always, if you like this video, hit that button. If you want to support, hit that subscribe and leave your comments below, and I catch you lot on the next video.